Josh Hasten here, Israel Uncensored, on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. It is Monday, the 1st of June, 2020, the 9th day of Sivan 5780. Coming to you this morning from beautiful Jerusalem, Israel, the eternal capital of the Jewish people. Hope you're doing well in your part of the world. Hope you are safe, whether it's from the coronavirus pandemic, or if you are listening to this podcast in the U.S., hope you are safe from it's now 5 or 6 days of rioting and looting and complete madness going out through many cities throughout the U.S. Hope you are safe. Hope you are taking the necessary precautions in case the looters turn on you. And it's extremely scary, disheartening, just unbelievable what's going on there in the U.S., and we'll talk about that in detail. Hope you had a wonderful Shavuot holiday for those who celebrate. And now we are on a stretch here where there are no Jewish holidays until Rosh Hashanah, other than you have Tisha B'Av, a fast day, the saddest day on the Jewish calendar, as well as the 17th day of Tammuz, that fast. Other than that, we have full weeks now from Shabbat to Shabbat, basically all the way to Rosh Hashanah throughout the summer and heading out into the fall. So I want to start by talking about the situation in the U.S., and I think the word of the day, which describes, for our purposes, as it relates to the riots in the U.S. and Israel somehow, is intersectionality. That's the word of the day. It's a mouthful to say, intersectionality. Okay? And it is the connecting or overlapping of two narratives or stories or situations in order to compare two different realities, somehow try to prove that they are so connected or related. And I'm talking specifically about the riots in the U.S., everything going on there, and the situation between Israel and the Arabs who live under the PA. That is what's going on. That is the attempt being made by the Israel haters out there, those who cynically use the murder, and we'll call it murder, okay, the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, those who use his murder to try to compare it to the situation here in Israel. And I think Herb Kanan in the Jerusalem Post this morning did an excellent job, my friend Herb, explaining what I'm talking about here, using that word, intersectionality. This is how it works. This is how Herb explains it, okay? Here we go. The U.S. campaign, this is from the Jerusalem Post, for Palestinian rights, tweeted on Thursday. The Israeli military trains U.S. police in racist and repressive policing tactics, which systematically targets black and brown bodies. So, according to this organization, it is the Israeli military who is behind all of this, because we have trained U.S. policemen on how to carry out this brutality in their view. Israel trained the U.S. policemen, so you already have there Israel being blamed. But it's not just coming from U.S. organizations who are drawing this comparison. You have our own MKs, members of Knesset here in Israel, including Joint List MK Ida Tumas Sleiman, who said, for all those who are outraged about the murder in the United States, look closely. An entire nation is suffocating under occupation without being able to breathe. Drawing a comparison, making those who are unaware of the major differences between the situations in the two countries and using that unable to breathe, can't breathe. That is the motto, because that is what Floyd was saying as he was being killed. So comparing the situation here, the Arabs obviously can't breathe in Israel, and they can't breathe, the African Americans, or in this case, specifically Floyd, can't breathe or couldn't breathe in the U.S., making that comparison. And of course, MK Ahmed Tibi linking the Floyd killing to a tragic shooting death Saturday in Jerusalem of a 32-year-old student with special needs who was killed, apparently mistaken for a terrorist, an honest mistake. Okay, for a terrorist, the Israeli border policeman thought this man had a gun. Okay, and he was killed, and you can say that's a tragedy, but there is no comparison between what is going on here and what is going on there. But the extremist, these Antifas, I don't even want to call them left-wing because they're a phony left-wing, making comparisons between the two situations happening 5,000-6,000 miles apart. And as Herb so eloquently explains, no, Minneapolis is not here. The situations are completely different. American blacks, unlike many Palestinians, do not see whites as usurpers on the American continent, whom they hope and actively struggle to displace. Okay, that's one point. And as he says, and as it is actually coming to be, there will be efforts to conflate the plight of African Americans, the racism they face there, with the plight of the word he uses, Palestinians. But the situations, as Herb explains, bear no similarity. And in the coming days, Israeli spokespeople, he advises, need to keep the so-called Palestinian supporters from usurping and hijacking the Floyd tragedy to bash Israel. Well, it is already happening. If you go onto Twitter, you will see Israel haters using, and this is a disgrace to the memory of Floyd, to take what happened to him and downplay it, essentially downplay it, take the focus away from Floyd to bring in Israel. It is repulsive, but it is not surprising because it is happening. It is happening with extremist organizations, anti-Israel organizations, haters of Israel, haters of the Jews are using this concept, intersectionality, using the narratives from two continents and comparing them to one another. And that's what's going on, folks. And that is so dangerous. It's dangerous in Israel. It's dangerous in America. And we are seeing it on the ground in the U.S. We are seeing it on the ground. I mean, using the Floyd, I mean, it's just unbelievable. Using the Floyd murder and blaming the Jews for what happened, for the action of a policeman or a team of policemen, has nothing to do with Jews or Israel or any of that. Yet, somehow, these terrorists in Beverly Hills write on a sign at the entrance to the city, "Kill the Jews, we're coming for your money." Or, as reported here by the Jerusalem Post, using sources including the great blogger Elder of Zion, a number of kosher stores, synagogues have been vandalized and looted in Los Angeles, in the neighborhood of Fairfax, between Saturday night and Sunday morning, by people protesting, violently protesting, what happened to George Floyd in Minneapolis. Some of the synagogues damaged as a result of vandalism, graffiti, and looting by protesters, including Congregation Kilat Yaakov, known as Rabbi Gershon Bess Shul, Tiferet Tzvi, and a lot of other businesses I saw there on videos, Sid's Pharmacy, Mensch Bakery, Kosher Vitamins, all in the Fairfax district. And make no mistake about it, these were Jewish, or are Jewish, stores, and obviously synagogues, institutions, deliberately being targeted by those who are using their hate of the Jews and the hate of Israel. And this is, by the way, this is an excuse, okay? Using the Floyd killing to show their true colors, their hate of the Jews, their hate of Israel, and scrawling this hate on synagogues. Free Palestine, F Israel. What does Israel have to do with a horrible incident in Minneapolis, Minnesota? Nothing. But they are making the comparison. They're showing their true colors, those who would deface a synagogue and burn down Jewish-owned businesses and write "Kill the Jews" in Beverly Hills. Whether it's the Floyd situation, whether it's Corona. I saw, a study last week? I think it was 1 in 5 in England believed that the Jews were behind the virus. Nothing has changed, folks. Nothing has changed for hundreds and thousands of years, from the Black Plague to the blood libels to what's going on in Los Angeles and in communities throughout the U.S. And it's a tragedy what's going on throughout the U.S. Of course, what happened to this man, and of course, the violent response and people burning down their own communities as a sign of protest. How does that make any sense? You're going to burn down your own businesses, your own communities. That's really going to get you justice. Okay? But as far as we are concerned here in Israel, this is an extremely frightening and dangerous trend. And I know that Israel isn't perfect. We have our own problems here in this country, that's for sure. There's no doubt about it. And I know a lot of you don't like to hear it, perhaps. Maybe you do, but there are people out there who don't like to hear it when people say, make aliyah. Obviously, the ideal would be to make aliyah when things are good, and you choose to make aliyah not because of suffering, not because of other reasons like that, but you make aliyah because you want to make aliyah, because this is where God wants the Jews to be, okay? And for some it's hard to hear that fact, but that is the truth. Those are the facts. And I'm not saying you can't have a great life outside of the country, outside of Israel. And there are plenty of amazing Jewish institutions all over the world. But I would say it in good times and in bad times. Make aliyah. And now with whether it's the coronavirus reality, whether it's the insanity going on in Los Angeles or in other parts of the U.S. or anywhere else around the world, I will never, ever waver in my belief that Jews should come home, and I will never stop preaching that, even though there are those who do not want to hear it and perhaps consider it insensitive to say it during these times. But I'm thinking, if I was sitting there in Los Angeles and I saw this in my neighborhood, and again, I don't know what you're planning on doing, but I would tell you to come home. And I won't stop saying it. Maybe you'll stop listening, but I will not stop saying that I want you to come home. Please come home. For your sake, to improve things here, we need more Jews to come home to Israel. And I won't shy away from it ever. Anyway, those are just my thoughts on what's going on over there in the U.S. And there's a lot more news to talk about, which we're going to do right now. But I had to get all that off my chest, seeing these images now for several days as the U.S., and I hope it ends soon, as the U.S. is eating itself, eating away at itself from inside. So hope things get better before they get worse. Anyway, so switching gears here, getting back to the latest with the coronavirus in this country. The numbers have gone up here in Israel. The numbers of those infected over the last several days. A lot of those infected actually come from one specific middle school, high school in Jerusalem, the Gymnasia Ivrit High School, where the last I heard, over 160 teachers and students tested positive for the virus. We should wish them a speedy recovery, or refuah shlema. As a result, all students from that school and other schools, there's several cases like this. I think in Hadera was just announced that a lot of children will be going into quarantine because of infected students or staff members. Minister of Health, the new Minister of Health, Yuli Edelstein, reported here by the J Post, says that the country will once again increase testing with this time targeting people rather with and without symptoms of the coronavirus. Edelstein made these comments on Sunday night. He unveiled a new coronavirus testing policy as a result of the situation. The way it works now is members of a verified patient's family, even if they don't have symptoms, will be checked on the same day as their family member is diagnosed. And then again, 5 days later, people who are asymptomatic but have come in close contact with a known patient, whether in a school, bus, or train, will also be screened. And at this point, you can go to your family doctor and get a prescription, basically, for a hafnaya, as it's called here in Israel, a prescription for a corona test. And you can go ahead and get tested, whether you're asymptomatic or you have the symptoms, if you came in contact with a sick person for at least 15 minutes. And anybody who's hospitalized will be screened. So again, is this a second wave? Is this part of the first wave? I mean, it definitely is a result of opening of the schools. So we can debate whether it was too soon, whether we did it at the right time, whether it was inevitable. All that's up for debate. And I'm not going to get into that now because I have mixed feelings about all of this. But the reality is that Corona is still here. The virus is still here, and we have to do everything in our power to stay safe. And it's a threefold strategy: wearing masks, social distancing, and maintaining the washing of the hands, the hygiene. Those three things still have to happen here in Israel. Bottom line, it's still here. And please God, it'll go away soon, or there'll be a vaccine, or something will happen. But the virus is still here. We'll have to see how the school situation plays out. There's about a month left or so until summer break. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see what happens then in the fall. Switching now to the whole topic of applying sovereignty in Judea, Samaria, the Jordan Valley, which Israel said it will begin to do on July 1st. The Jewish press reports that former head of Israel's National Security Council, Brigadier General Yaakov Amidror, warned about a third intifada, which could erupt in Judea and Samaria if, in fact, Prime Minister Netanyahu keeps his promise to impose Israeli sovereignty on parts of Judea and Samaria. And at the same time, PA Chairman Mahmoud Abbas, I don't know how many times he's done this, but he has threatened again that he's going to break off security cooperation with the Israeli government. So here you have the security forces preparing for what may or may not happen come July 1st. It is unclear if Israel will go ahead and start the process of applying sovereignty to Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria. And again, people who are against such a move will argue the timing isn't right? And we've heard this for the last 25 years. We've heard this for the last 72 years. Whether it's declaring the state of Israel. No, not now. The timing isn't right. There are those who believe the timing is never right to exercise our sovereignty over the entire country, over any part of that, or any part of the country, as was the case in 1948. But im lo achshav ematai, as they say, if not now, when? I mean, when would be a good time? You tell me, when would be a good time to exercise our sovereignty, something we should have done in Judea and Samaria 53 years ago? It's never a good time for people. It's never a good time for Israel to exercise its sovereignty over its biblical and historic heartland. Never a good time. So you have those who say it'll lead to violence. You had those who said that the U.S. moving the embassy to Jerusalem would result in World War III. So you have a lot of naysayers out there. I think it should be done. It should be done in a smart way, but it should be done already. I mean, how many more years should residents of Judea and Samaria, anytime they want to build an extension to their house or a pergola or whatnot, how many times does that need approval from the IDF or the defense ministry, instead of being able to take your building plans and go to your local municipality and say, hey, We just had kids or grandkids or whatnot, and we need to build an extra room or an extra bathroom or whatever it is. It doesn't work like that here, folks. That is one of the major reasons that Israelis, all Israelis, should be able to exercise their basic rights in all parts of the country. But let me just say this. Those who are threatening violence, okay, they are using this potential policy as an excuse, not the reason why any violence would take place. If you remember, when Ariel Sharon went up to the Temple Mount, they blamed him for causing the Oslo War or the Second Intifada, but this was a premeditated war of terror against the Jewish people in the state of Israel. And they used that as the excuse, Sharon going up, and now they're using Israel's right to apply sovereignty over Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria, using that as an excuse, not the reason, an excuse to threaten violence. I mean, obviously nobody wants violence, and please God, it shouldn't happen, and everything should be quiet. But enough is enough already. It's time to apply Israeli sovereignty. And again, Zev Elkin, member of the Security Cabinet, reported by Times of Israel, told Army Radio that July 1st is not a drop-dead deadline. It could be pushed off. You have the U.S. Mapping Committee putting together their plans of what Israel, in their opinion, and again, I don't even know why, with all due respect to everything great the Trump administration has done for us, I don't know why. Maybe I'm just naive. Why we have to base our strategic interests so much on another country, even if they're great friends, don't get me wrong, like the U.S. and certainly this administration, but there needs to be like a flipping of the switch. I mean, we're still young, but after 72 years or whatnot, there has to be a flipping of the switch where we do things which are in our best interests, even if it's stepping on the toes of others. I mean, Menachem Begin applying sovereignty to the Golan Heights in one day back in 1981, and even though he upset a good friend in Ronald Reagan, he still got the job done. And I know the situation is not the same in Judea and Samaria. There are different scenarios and different realities here. But that being said, and all due respect, once again, Israel needs to do what's in its best interest. Talked about potential violence where there was some actual attempts of violence over the Shavuot holiday, reported here by I-24 News. IDF soldiers were forced to shoot an Arab driver who tried to use his car as a weapon and run into them. This near the community of Chalamish in the Shomron. The Arab was shot dead after he tried to run over IDF soldiers with his vehicle. Yesterday was a special day in Jerusalem with the reopening of the Temple Mount. This after 70 days in which the site was closed to Jewish visitors as a result of the outbreak of Corona. The Mount was reported here by Arut Sheva. The Mount was open to Jews at the same time as most of the restrictions on Muslims entering and praying in the area were lifted yesterday morning. Again, Muslims can pray up there. Jews cannot openly pray. That's the difference. There were several arrests made. I think it was 8 arrests, if I'm not mistaken, of Muslims who were disturbing the Jews and their visit to the Temple Mount. You had former MK and Temple Mount activist Yehuda Glick up there, amongst others. But positive sign here, the Temple Mount once again open for Jews to visit. The New York Post reports that President Trump signed the Never Again Education Act into law this past Friday. The New York Post reports the act will authorize the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum to create educational materials about the Holocaust to be used as education resources to teachers and students. Kayla, I'm going to mispronounce her last name. She's great. The White House press secretary. Let me try it. McAnany. Is that it? Did I get that right? I hope I got that right. She said this administration, she's great. She's great. If you watch her, she's a true pro. We'll always work to ensure future generations never forget the Holocaust, that they condemn racial hatred of all types, and that they always work to protect the rights of all people to worship freely. And somehow, some people think President Trump is an anti-Semite. Here yet again, he is proving that he stands with the Jewish people, and he stands with the land of Israel and the state of Israel. That's for sure. Of course, in my humble opinion, but I think the proof is in the pudding, time and time again, proving that he has done well for Israel and is doing well for the Jewish people. And on a sad note here, I went to Yeshiva University. I'm a proud alum and graduate of YU. Norman Lamb, the third president of YU Yeshiva University, serving from 1976 until 2013, who is credited with reinvigorating the institution and helping to save it from bankruptcy. He has died at the age of 92. Reported here by Zev Stubb in the Jerusalem Post this morning. Former YU president, Rabbi Norman Lamb, dies at 92. Very, very sad indeed. Known for one of his most important works, Torah Umada, exploring the importance and challenges of synthesizing a deeply religious life with worldly endeavors and secular wisdom. He will be missed, Rabbi Norman Lamb. Always want to finish on a positive note here. Again, even though Corona is still here, things are in fact opening up. I hope they continue to open up. I hope all the kids in high schools and middle schools and all the kids are safe from here to the end of the year, the school year, that is. But just as an example of how things are opening up, on this past Wednesday, I took the day off and went up to the Kinneret, the Lake of Galilee. And we've talked about weather time and time again on the show. As a result of 2 straight, very rainy winters, the Lake of Galilee, the Kinneret, has risen tremendously. There's so much water, thank God, in the Kinneret. I went up on Wednesday. I saw it for myself. So beautiful, so nice. Just one of the many hundreds, if not thousands, of amazing wonders here in the land of Israel, the Lake of Galilee, the Kinneret. If you're listening to this and you're in Israel, take the day, go up to the Kinneret, enjoy the beauty, go to the other parks and nature reserves and whatever's open now. Things are reopening slowly up there in the north. The beautiful streams and watering holes, ponds and lakes and rivers and everything else up there in northern Israel. So nice. But just wanted to share with you how beautiful it is here in Israel this time of year. Everyone out there in the wonderful world of ours, whether you are battling the corona pandemic, get well, whether you're dealing with the rioting throughout the U.S., if you're listening, be safe out there. Do what you need to do to protect yourself. Take care of your loved ones. Take care of your businesses. And please God, that craziness will end here soon. I'm hopeful that law enforcement, whether it's the police or whether the military needs to be called in, whomever it is, restores law and order over there in the U.S. And of course, things should be quiet here in Israel as well. That's going to do it for today. My name is Josh Hasten. This has been another edition of Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com for Monday, the 1st of June, 2020, the 9th of Sivan, 5780. Thank you so much to Ben Bresky, for all the work he does at the station, Tabitha Epstein, for everything she does behind the scenes. Get in touch with me during the week, Josh at thelandofisrael.com, on Facebook, Joshua Hasten, or Josh Hasten, Israel Advocacy and Journalism, on Twitter at Josh Hasten, and now on Instagram as well. Wishing everyone a peace, a quiet, and safe week from just outside the old city walls of the city of Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the Jewish people and the state of Israel. Shalom, shalom. Be well, everybody.
The Land of Israel Network is your connection to Israel and the Jewish world. Listen to our show hosts, Ari Abramowitz, Jeremy Gimpel, Eve Harrow, Josh Hasten, Shlomo Katz, Mike Foyer, Yishai Fleischer, and more, keeping you up to date on news, politics, and spirituality. That's the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com, broadcasting the truth and beauty of Israel to the world.